The episode opens with Satrakian narrating about the delay of defeating the evils even after 23 days due to political debates, media distractions, punditry, and grandstanding. Also, the vampires are evolving quickly. The United States has announced plans for a massive surge deployment of National Guard troops and U.S. Army reserves to push into NY City and wipe out infected. However, because of new outbreaks in other cities, military support has been redistributed to halt the spread of disease and panic. If humanity has any hope of defeating this plague, it has to happen now or never. In the next scene, we see a proficient team of Navy SEALs going down the abandoned subway tunnels and slaying the vampires. Also, Vasily is hired by Farolado to work with the SEALs, helping them get a better understanding of vampire hunting patterns and how to navigate NY. Meanwhile, Ephraim is seen inside his old house drunk and half asleep. After Nora's death and Zach's disappearance, he has been staying at his old house and waiting for Zach to return safe. Suddenly, Ephraim sees Zach at the door, fully transformed into a vampire. When Zach tries to lash out at Ephraim, he shoots Zach. However, it's just a dream, and Ephraim wakes up hearing the police knock on the door. They remind Ephraim that the place has a mandatory evacuation order by Faraldo and ask him to go to a safer place. When Ephraim says he is waiting for his son at the house, the officers leave. Next morning, Ephraim leaves the house to work on his mission to create his bioweapon. Meanwhile, Faraldo arrives at his workstation with raw materials for his bioweapon. After knowing that Ephraim has been staying at his old house at nights, Faraldo tries to convince him it's dangerous. Furthermore, she asks him to train others at CDC to make his bioweapon and figure this cure on a larger scale. Due to lack of manpower and high rate of casualties, Faraldo says she and her team won't be able to carry on the mission. Adding to the misery, Ephraim's bioweapons efficiency has reduced to 75% from 100% last week, possibly because the vampires are either adapting or evolving. Therefore, she asks him to alter his formula or come up with a new plan. Faraldo warns Ephraim that if they don't get ahead of the enemies, the human race will be finished sooner or later. The following day, Ephraim breaks into a pharmaceutical warehouse to steal the medical supplies to barter them with food and alcohol on the street. Elsewhere, Satrakian is still going through the Oxido Lumen with Quinlan, helping him translate the ancient text. Satrakian reads that the 7 forms of plagues are mortal only to the face of God. Hearing this, Quinlan claims that the Lumen has only clues and metaphors. However, Satrakian argues that once he completes the book, he will have all the answers. Since the Master is building his army and each day of delay will make their work harder, Quinlan wants to kill the Master soon. However, Satrakian doesn't want to be rash like earlier until he possesses all the knowledge from the Lumen. Later, Vasily goes to the Special Command Center to meet Faraldo. Although the Navy SEALs have been able to take down the vampires, he explains they are evolving faster. She explains they need further help and asks Vasily to convince the SEALs for reinforcements with more weapons and manpower. Elsewhere, Gus has his turn mother chained up in the apartment, where he feeds her with his own drawn blood. However, she's not satisfied with her appetite and snarls on Gus, lunging her tentacle towards him. Seeing his mother's condition, Gus tells he will avenge her and leaves the apartment. At the Ancients' headquarters, Quinlan meets the Ancients and a new paratrooper vampire named Lar, who now speaks on behalf of the Ancients. Lar says the Ancients are surprised to see Quinlan and call him a traitor for letting Satrakian take the Lumen, and later joining him. However, Quinlan justifies himself, saying he has no alliances, but only an enemy. Moreover, Quinlan asks where are the rest of the Ancients from the 7 plagues as mentioned in the Lumen. There are only 3 Ancients in the headquarters, 7th of them is the Master, and the remaining 3 are missing. Quinlan believes that the Master must have killed the remaining Ancients before coming to the New World. When the Ancients ask Quinlan what they have learned from the Lumen, Quinlan realizes they are afraid if the Master's demise will also cause their own destruction. Quinlan explains the book is not yet deciphered, and there's still a lot more to read. Since Quinlan and the Ancients have the same enemy, he assures them he is their best hope and leaves. Vasily returns back to Satrakian at their new residence and tells him how the Navy SEALs have been able to take down thousands of vampires, and soon they will find the Master and take him down. Meanwhile, Quinlan, who has been listening to their talks, asks Vasily to alert him if the Navy locates the Master, because he's the only one who can take down the Master. However, Vasily believes the military will surely defeat the Master with the ISR drone support, night vision goggles, and automatic assault rifles, to which Quinlan explains that the technology can't defeat the Master. Annoyed, Vasily says he hates Quinlan as he is a half-vampire and drinks human blood and has a stringer like the other ones. Then, Satrakian stops Vasily and explains Quinlan's importance. The same night, The SEALs explain to Vasily that they are moving out in 2 days if they are not able to find the Master, and focus on more nascent outbreaks elsewhere. Later during the hunt for the Master, Eichhorst lures a team of SEALs into a trap inside an abandoned and dark church. Once inside, they encounter the Master, who feeds on them and kills them. The Navy SEALs are brutally defeated with only 2 survivors, who are escorted outside by Vasily. Next we see Zach is still alive and is held by Kelly. He helps her with her hair and makeup. Since Kelly claims she is going to do something for the Master, she assures Zach that the Master will let them stay together. Later that night, Kelly arrives at Ephraim's place along with her feelers. She assures Ephraim that Zach is okay and shall be returned to Ephraim in exchange for the oxydo lumen. Inside a laboratory, doctors examine and culture the vampire's worms and white ooze to find out a cure for human illness. After 7 failed attempts, they use their 8th formula on their test subject, a 72-year-old woman with vascular dementia. However, this formula also fails, as it has a severe reaction on the lady. When the situation looks uncontrollable, the doctor panics and shoots the lady. Elsewhere, Vasily asks a Navy when they are getting new troops, to which he says they won't work on the mission to kill the Master because all their efforts have been in vain, since they couldn't find anything. Also, the officer says he lost his 6 good men for nothing. Since the military is cutting bait, the SEALs are heading out to try and control the outbreak in DC. After the officer leaves, a lady named Kate, sitting next to Vasily, talks to him about the vampires getting faster and better, to which Vasily says the vampires are adapting. They talk about Feraldo's vision to take back the city, and think they will never be able to see that day. They drink together and later end up together in bed. Ephraim goes to visit Satrakian at his new residence. In the hallway, Quinlan, who has been protecting Satrakian's hiding place, attacks Ephraim, considering him an enemy. Meanwhile, Vasily arrives and explains he is a friend. Ephraim tells Satrakian and Vasily about Nora's death and Zach's disappearance. Hearing about Nora's death, Satrakian breaks down. When Ephraim says Zach has not been turned, Satrakian warns him to be careful since the Master must have planned to use Zach against Ephraim. In the following scene, Dutch and her friends go inside a deserted skyscraper to steal food. Inside the building, the vampires attack some of her friends, while the others run and leave her alone to die. However, she manages to kill the vampires and escape. Outside the building, she gets terrified and breaks down. Later, when Dutch goes back to her friends, she finds one of them is already infected, as she finds it under a UV light. As a result, she beheads him and heads out. At Stoneart Group, Palmer's health is deteriorating and pleads Eichhorst for the Master's white ooze, which will rejuvenate him again. However, Eichhorst refuses, saying Palmer's ego cost them the lumen, so he should earn his reward by finding Satrakian and retrieving the lumen. Palmer assures Eichhorst that he will prove himself to the Master. Meanwhile, Satrakian reads some points from the lumen to Vasily and Ephraim. When Ephraim doesn't seem to believe that lumen will be helpful in killing the Master, Satrakian explains that scholars have written the book after witnessing real events. Furthermore, he says the sunburn will kill the Master only during an occultation eclipse. Since they just had an eclipse and the next is after several years, this method will not work. Ephraim asks Vasily what he thinks about the lumen, and Vasily believes Satrakian will figure it out. At Stoneheart Building, a doctor meets Palmer and shows him the video of the old day they had tested with the vampire's white ooze. Since no formula has worked and many innocent people are dying after being tested, the doctor leaves, saying he won't work for Palmer anymore. Quinlan is doubtful of Ephraim and asks him where he was all this time, since Ephraim ridicules the lumen, but has also keen interest in it. Quinlan suspects Ephraim is onto something. Later during a conversation, Satrakian tells Ephraim to take the opportunity to rescue Zach, but be careful with Master, since he knows Ephraim's desire. Meanwhile, Vasily arrives and gives a message to Satrakian that Rudyard wants to meet Satrakian, so Satrakian leaves with Vasily to meet him. However, they find out it's Palmer instead, who asks Satrakian about the formula for the Master's white in exchange for leaving New York and withdrawing all his alliance with the Master. However, Satrakian refuses the deal and tells Palmer to go to hell since he had betrayed Satrakian many years ago. While returning back, Vasily asks Satrakian about how he figured out the formula, to which Satrakian replies an old vampire hunter taught him when he was in Vienna. The formula has been handed down among selected alchemists since the 3rd century. Satrakian says he will take the formula until he wins his fight. Meanwhile, Zach manages to escape from his room, where he is being held. Outside, he sees Kelly feeding on a girl. This scares him and he tries to run. However, because of his asthma, he starts wheezing. When Kelly finds Zach, she can't resist herself from feeding on him. As she unfolds her tentacle to attack Zach, the The master arrives and she backs off. Surprisingly, the master slices his finger and drops his white into Zach's mouth, and he recovers immediately. At the end, Ephraim goes to Satrakian's room to search the lumen. However, he finds it locked inside a safe surrounded by UV lights. Suddenly, Quinlan arrives behind Ephraim and asks him what did the master offer him in exchange for the Oxido lumen, to which Ephraim says his son. Quinlan is sure the master will not keep his end of the bargain, but desperate to get his son back, Ephraim says that it's the only chance for him. But Quinlan suggests to him that the lumen will bring the master out of hiding, and when he comes for it, Quinlan will kill him because of his personal grievances. He assures Ephraim that he's been preparing to kill the master for over 1,000 years. He believes he and Ephraim together can bring down the master and save Zach along with the world, so Ephraim agrees to work with him. Subscribe and hit that like button to help our channel grow. Turn on the notifications so you won't miss any of our new videos. Thanks for watching.